Today's parasha is full. We begin the second year of the Exodus. Can you believe we're only there? And are told that the cloud of God's presence, of God, settles and moves forth to lead the Israelites, sometimes for a day, sometimes for a few days, sometimes for a year or more, as Moshe delivers teachings drawn from his connection to God in the tent of meeting. Remember, the tent of meeting is not the Hadar Ochel, it's not the big dining room at camp. The tent of meeting is like Moses' special little teepee where he gets his messages from God, because that's important for this parsha. God instructs us to make trumpets to coordinate the procession and act as sirens and muster for times of attack, as Israel's sirens are sounding today. And then comes continued grievances from the Israelites over food and conditions, and always the yearning to return to Egypt. Moshe and God take turns being utterly frustrated and angry at the people, and when even life-sustaining and utterly predictable manna is deemed by the people an insult, both Moshe and God seem to want to give up at the same time. And then Moshe says to God, "Why have you placed the burden of this entire people upon me? I alone cannot carry this entire nation, for it is too heavy a burden." And God now turns to support Moshe, saying, "Gather 70 men from among the elders of Israel and have them stand with you at that tent of meeting. And they will help bear the burden of the people with you. And as for the people complaining that life was better for them in Egypt, tell them that God will provide the meat that they're craving. Tell them it will be so much meat that they must eat it for a whole month until it comes out of their nostrils and makes them nauseated. Tell them it is because you have rejected Adonai, who is in your midst, and you have wept before Adonai, crying out, saying, 'Why did we leave Egypt?' And then some die, and this place is called the graves of craving, or the graves of lust." Then Miriam and Aharon speak against Moshe, saying, "Has God indeed spoken only with Moshe? Has God not also spoken with us?" And God heard their words, taking it to be against Moshe. So, and I love this line, I still think it's key, "Now Moshe was extremely humble, more than all the persons who live on the face of the earth." God summons the three of them and tells Miriam and Aharon that Moshe is special, for directly mouth to mouth do I speak with him, not in riddles. And he beholds the image of God. And then Miriam gets sarat, and Aharon and Moshe plead that it should subside. So God limits this grounding, I call it grounding, I feel like she's been grounded for a week, to just 7 days outside the camp. And why Aharon is not struck with sarat is anybody's guess. The central theme of the parasha seems to be leadership. But I really think it's about its often neglected counterpart, those who are the ones craving leadership. For leadership is relational, and we often forget that. There is no leader without those wanting one. And as the parasha makes clear, their character is as determinative as the leaders. I feel like the parasha speaks directly to today, at least to me, but it usually does, the parasha. In my entire life, I've never seen this so truly. In my lifetime, in our society, we have a president who was elected because his entire campaign was echoing the grievances of his crowds. And I don't find those on the other side of the spectrum so different. I find continued grievance, and grievance. I don't know, college should be free and plentiful, healthcare should be free and plentiful, climate change should be reversed immediately. Is there any craving for hearing words of collective responsibility, of sacrifice, of constructive plans? Nope, it's the fault of capitalism, colonialism, militarism, and of course now Zionism. The thing that strikes me about these demonstrations so often, and maybe why I don't speak on them more, is I find there's no room for discussion. There's no room for disagreement. There's no room for complexity. Bringing up facts is like contradicting the direct message from God. They want their grievances amplified. They refuse to explain. They want voices that say their grievances back to them. They don't want solutions, they want mottos. There's no Shema. There's no listening. What kind of leader is that relation establishing? Perhaps that's the reason that God is so surprisingly harsh on Miriam and Aharon, because probably like you, I don't fully understand it. We know precious little about Miriam's style of leadership and Aharon's style of leadership. But all we really know is that Miriam has led all the women in singing and dancing during her prophesying, and we know that Aaron has presided over the golden calf festivities. Both might be prone to thinking they will meet the people halfway, but some people there is no meeting halfway when the people have established a grievance mentality. So what makes Moses so special? What makes him the most humble person on the face of the earth? I wonder if it's that, and this always surprises me about Moses. Yes, we know that he seems to be a reluctant leader in the first place, and that always seems to be a good quality. I didn't want to do this, please don't make me do it. Have someone else do it instead. But also as we go through the Torah, I don't find that Moshe ever has the temptation to be liked. He never seems to care whether he's popular. Who's like that? Who doesn't want their ego stroked a little bit? Rabbi, that was a great sermon. Moshe, I love that milk and meat thing. Give me more of that. Maybe that's what makes him most the humble person at all. And maybe that's what gives him his clarity with God. Wanting to be liked is a kind of temptation. You know, people have asked me, let's say last year when I was teaching Kabbalah, Rav Nadab, you love Kabbalah. You're preaching the Kabbalah. You're we're in the period of Chochmah now, and Bina is going to enter, and you're so into it. So, why don't you come to my meditation retreat at, the center over in Western Massachusetts, because it's going to be all on that. We're going to be led through praying and davening. I never go to any of that stuff. And people say, why don't you do that? It's like you're going, but you stop short. Or I just preached on Heschel. And I'm like, look, they're the rationalists, and then there are the ones on the other side that says that it's everything about Judaism is based in your connection to God. And the rationalism is great because it'll keep you ethical. But we're wanting something from the heart. And they're and you give these examples but you don't have a Rebbe. And you don't want to be a Rebbe. So why not? It's simple. I really don't like gurus. I am very, very wary of people that say, oh, you're into this thing that I'm into? Follow me. Come to my retreat. I will be your mentor. I will help you. I'm very skeptical that they have the humility to guide. And so I go right up to where they are, but I say, you're a fellow traveler, but I am not your disciple. Heschel makes an interesting point that at least I take from him, that it's very hard to tell from people's words whether it's really prophetic. I use the example in class about love. I could read a paragraph. If I ask someone, are you in love with the person you say you're in love with? And they can make a list of reasons. It can be we share the same values, I love our conversations, they like cats too, we share a love of the outdoors. And they're not in love. And I can read the exact same words from someone else, and they are in love. It's the problem with leaders. What words are we craving, right? And is the prophecy, is the connection really behind it? As Heschel leads me to think, are you analyzing their work, or are you willing to really analyze their character? And if what you're after is certain words, will you get behind it? The prophetic and being liked, to me, is the road to temptation. And the road to temptation goes through Satan. This parasha of Beha'alotkha, several years ago, I was at a public forum later in this week. It would have been an anniversary. And in that public forum, a Gen Z Jew said in the forum, you'll never catch me in a synagogue because the rabbis are not prophetic. I need a prophetic rabbi. And they said they're never preaching anti-racism, they're never preaching Black Lives Matter. And so when it got around in the public forum to me, I said, by the way, last week was Beha'alotkha, and I preached exactly on Black Lives Matter and anti-racism based on the comments that you probably caught in the parasha. Would you have come? And they said, well, if I'd known that you were going to be preaching on exactly that, maybe, but probably not. What are they craving in their leader? People ask me, is it hard to be a rabbi these days? I think it's hard to be a human being these days, and I don't think I'm any different. Yes, I had a couple of very, very nice years until, I don't know, Trump was elected the first time, and then we just had a little thing called the pandemic, and then we just had the attack on Israel, and then we had Trump the second time, and now we have what's going on today. I don't think that applies hard, especially to me, as to all of us. So yes, it's hard to be a rabbi these days, but I don't think it's for the reason that people think. I think people might say that because they think I'm desperate to say what I really think, but I'm worried about offending people. I think it's different. Look, I'm not as humble as Moshe, nobody is. But I like to keep before my mind at all times a sense of my deep fallibility. A fallibility that all human beings possess because we are not God and we are not prophets. We don't know everything and we could be wrong. When I am certain of something down to my bones, I say it. Why don't I sermonize more prophetically? Because I've noticed a very interesting thing. When someone sermonizes the politics people agree with already, they are called a prophetic rabbi. And I had a list, one of my many lists of colleagues I unsubscribed from last year because it was all prophetic things for exactly the people who agree with it. But isn't a prophetic leader someone who sermonizes what might be unpopular? Isn't the point to explore the tradition to make us all a little bit uncomfortable? Now, people still think prophetic rabbis do that because they're like, yeah, they're making all those racists uncomfortable. And I'm like, you think there are that many racists in the sanctuary? You know what I mean? Like, I think maybe like everyone there is like, yeah, we agree with this. Sermonizing prophetically for what people want to hear because it's their politics is a surefire way to feel that one is the guru channeling God. But it's really intoxicating to the ego. And I think what makes Moshe the humblest of anyone is that he's a reluctant leader in so many ways and one who doesn't seem to be filled with a sense of his own charisma. After all, why would he say, I just want to give up, they're too much for me, if he really believes in his own power? I believe people generally read incorrectly the sharing of prophecy with the elders of Israel. I don't think it's about, you see, he's such a great leader, he got help. It doesn't say that anyone listened to what they say, and it doesn't say that they helped him. I think it's more of a story about Moshe's humility than it is of shared leadership. Or else, why don't we hear anything coming of it? Or maybe it's meant not for Moshe, but for the people. If you get 70 leaders together to prophesy, you're going to hear 70 different voices, many of which disagree with you. We all want the prophetic leader, the one who puts into words what we are feeling and thinking. But the prophet is the one, as Heschel says, who puts into words what God is feeling and thinking. If we desire the former rather than the latter, we will get what we deserve, and we too often have. Shabbat Shalom. Musaf begins on page